we got 12 minutes to see what we can resolve, right? We'll try to resolve as much as we can. We've got to uphold the law.
That's great. Thank you so much for meeting with us. I'm sorry I've caused you all this trouble, and hopefully we can get things resolved quickly and efficiently. I'm going to turn it over to my task guys.
Thank you very much, Agent Schrute, Agent Martin. We want to keep in mind that we want to make sure that we're on the same page. We're going to keep the pace brisk, but we want to resolve as many issues that are at hand, like you said. So first we're going to start with the bond interest that was in question.
Yep.
So this is a list of bonds that Mr. Paul owns. And first we would like to say that we totally agree with you that the interest on the U.S. Treasury bond should not be exempted from the federal tax. So we will definitely include those in the gross income of his amended return.
I've been doing this for 20 years. Clearly I know something, right?
Certainly.
You're an expert on this.
Yes, thank you.
So for the next bond, the American Samoa General Obligation Bond. So we believe that since Samoa is part of the territory of the United States, it should qualify as a municipal bond under Code Section 103. And just in case you might be interested, this is an executive order signed by George W. Bush that says Samoa is part of the U.S. So we believe this interest should be tax exempt.
Spencer?
Then we have the Wake Forest.
Yep. So the last bond is issued by Wake Forest Baptist Medical Center. So we believe that this bond should qualify as a hospital bond under the Code Section 145C, because the 100% of the net proceeds generated from this bond goes to expanding the hospital facilities.
Detailed in the covenants of the bond.
Yeah. So do you have any questions about that?
What do you feel about that one, Spencer?
That sounds good.
Kind of her specialty. She's good with it, I'm good with it.
Excellent. All right. Well,
Thank you.
glad to hear that. So moving on to the charitable donation of a painting during the year.
We prepared, I know, we prepared something with regard to the painting. You acknowledged that our correspondences, that the artwork would qualify as a not-for-profit under Wake Forest University, under IRC 170.
Back to your alma mater, huh?
I did.
Oh,
Yes.
Very generous of you.
Yep, so Mr. Paul can explain the reasoning for the donation.
Okay.
I grew up in Winston-Salem. I went to Wake Forest. I had an amazing 4 years at Wake. And basically, when I was there was no art program that was founded in the style that Emily Carr really presents. And I wanted the students to really enjoy that painting. And it turns out they're loving it. So because of this, I'm going to actually donate more paintings and build a wing.
What Wake Forest painting?
They're using it for students as well as the community to come through and take classes.
President Hatch was able to confirm the use of the painting and it's being displayed in the
Wake Chapel.
So I didn't, the tax return had a big $500,000 number on it, but not much else.
Yes, well, we have documentation required under IRC 170 F8. Here first is the acknowledgement from President Hatch upon receipt of the donation, along with Form 8283 that's filled out here with an appraisal that Wake Forest has from Martin & Sons, who are qualified under IRC A723.
You actually do have an appraisal.
Yes.
$550,000. So appraisal was in 2012, but the deductions in 2011?
Yes, that's correct, but it's clear that the contribution was made with a bona fide charitable intent, and it is clear that it's appreciated since it was obtained in 2009. So we believe that it's a reasonable number. We understand that it may not be worth as much because there was a trend, as you can see from the document that Claire very fruitfully prepared for you, and we estimate that it's around $500,000 in value at the time of the contribution.
So you only paid 2009 paid $325.
That is correct, but it's clearly appreciated. There's no doubt that it has appreciated in value.
About $225,000 over less than 3 years. So.
One of the requirements is to have an appraisal done before you file the tax return, and this would have been done before Mr. Paul filed his tax return.
Okay.
Another requirement though was to actually attach the 8283 to the actual tax return.
That
is a pretty stringent requirement. Why was that not done?
We understand that under the code there can be a reasonable reason. We don't think it was willful neglect that he did not provide
Mr. Paul, can I hear your own words then why why you didn't attach that?
Basically, I was under the understanding that all I had to do was write down the value, and because the Museum of American Art offered me $500,000 for it, I assumed that I could just write
That
that
is
down.
correct.
And that's the document right here for that.
And he worked with what the documentation that he had at his disposal at the time. In the interest of time, we'll come back to this issue, but we do believe that it's worth $500,000. We'd be willing to negotiate the actual value that's being described on the tax return. But we do have another charitable contribution. It was a car during the year.
Yeah, so Mr. Paul acquired a car through his All-Star, as a prize from the All-Star game. And we have the
Can I just say one
documentation.
thing that, Mr. Paul, I'm a big fan. You're a great gar. I go with Billy Crystal all the games and stuff. And I grew up on a beet farm, got my own game, you know, so just want to say my thing. All right, I'm sorry.
Excellent.
Not a problem at all. But, alright, so here was the document that said how much the car was worth when it was originally given to Chris Paul.
So, should include an income, right?
Exactly, that's what we're getting at.
Okay.
So we
next.
completely agree with you. However, he donated it to the WFDD 88.5 radio station of Wake Forest, and here is
Good car away,
documentation. Exactly. So we believe it under IRC code 170 that it should be a non-cash charitable contribution, and right after it was given to the radio station, they sold it for $90,000, and here's an invoice for that, and we believe that is a fair value estimate of how much the deduction should be worth.
At the time, and it was a simultaneous exchange. It was sold in a relatively short time period, so we believe that that is the amount of the deduction that should be included.
Can we give you any other documentation?
We also filled out the non-cash, the form 8283.
That was prepared with it, but the radio station was able to confirm, acknowledge the, so those are the required documents.
About the Form 1098C, usually when you donate a car.
You usually have to fill that out, right? That's the official documentation.
From the Wake Forest, from the donee, yes, we do not have that at this time, but we can double check with I'm sure they prepared it, we just do not have that amongst our
You
documentation.
can give it to me in the next 2 hours.
We can fax that over to you.
I think that'd be, as soon as you can produce that, because they would have given Mr. Paul, or
Certainly.
sent it somewhere. Who
Certainly.
knows? I know you moved and stuff, so maybe they got lost in the mail. but-
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of the move, we did want to address the moving expenses that were claimed, so,
Claim, that's an interesting word.
so
Wish I could move
First-
like that.
first, we did want to ask exactly why you took a position with a team that was not going to reimburse your moving expenses.
Well, basically,
They
Oh.
didn't reimburse?
no, that's
They
part of the
reimbursed for
contract.
everybody.
Not everybody.
It was clear in the
Maybe you should
contract
have
of
a better
employment,
agent.
it was clear in the contract that it was not to be reimbursed. As you can see, we've highlighted for you, moving expenses are not to be reimbursed by the
Wow.
employer.
That's really, I guess, not a tax issue, it's more, do you have a good agent or not? But it says right there, you won't get
Those are the
reimbursed.
circumstances.
That's right, facts are facts, right?
Okay, fair enough. But it was apparently advantageous for the client to take the job despite that. So, under Section 217, the qualified and timely moving expenses are to be deducted on the Schedule A, but provided they aren't lavish or extravagant given the facts and circumstances, and we believe that they were necessary in terms of the lodging expenses. And could you explain to us a little bit why the lodging was the number that you may be in dispute of?
Definitely. Basically, moving to LA, it was a very short-term notice kind of thing, and the only hotel that was available at that time that had an adequate security detail for my family and I, it was the only one that was available. And
The
security
only
was
one
on top.
in LA?
Yeah, because I believe there was something else going on at the Staples Center, and I had to be there.
Absolutely.
And safety is just number one priority for me.
It's, obviously reasonable amount, I mean, that's different for every individual, right?
That's
Different stuff, but it's still a big amount.
Well-
Is there any, you really feel strongly that it's that amount or nothing, or?
We believe it is correct. There is accurate documentation in terms of the sales receipts for the travel expenses in addition to the hotel stay. They detailed the night's stay and the worth, the amount and the rate per day, and other services that were provided in addition to the security that was provided. I believe that those are reasonable and those were accurately documented on the required 3903. was provided in the return. And we also would like to point out that the Treasury Reg 217-2 does deem these reasonable in terms of the specific expenses that were required in terms of the move between LA and New Orleans, and we highlighted again for you the specific travel expenses between those two cities. Now,
What do you think, Ms. Spencer?
I mean, that all seems fair, except just room service, does that include meals?
it does, and there are differences in different regulations and how that's defined, but we are willing to concede that the 3,100 may or may not. Yes, it is not deductible. So.
Ms. Spencer's okay with it. I mean, you didn't get reimbursed. I think you already got hosed a little bit, right? So at least I can give you a tax deduction since you spent the money.
I'd appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you. So, the last issue that we want to discuss is this business loan between Chris
To the cousin,
between Jason and Chris.
but he's a cousin.
Yeah, but they do establish the promissory note. So, yeah, and
It's in good form.
Yeah, and I believe Ms. Paul has made every effort to collect it. His agent called for a lot of times last year, and yeah, and
So I mean, it is a promissory note that usually does establish a loan.
Yes.
yeah.
I've made several loans like this before, specifically to Deshaun Wood and Derek
These are
Byers.
the two agreements.
Why do you find this? You look at this as an investment or business or
I
hobby?
do,
Or?
completely business related, because I see these players, I've played against them in the past, and they're quality players, and
Well, I know Deshaun and Derek. I've never really heard of your cousin before.
well, the thing is, like with any business loan, you never know you really never know.